You and your son are nothing but parasites. That was the sentence that broke something inside me. Not cracked, broken. Clean through, like a tree hit by lightning. And the voice that screamed it was my mother's. Her face was twisted, red, trembling with a rage I didn't understand. Behind her, my father stood with his arms crossed, jaw tight, refusing to look at me, almost like he thought if he made eye contact, he'd feel something he didn't want to feel. My 7-year-old son, Ethan, clung to my leg, his little fingers digging into my jeans as if holding tighter might somehow stop the world from collapsing. "Mom, Dad, what are you talking about?" I whispered, my voice shaking. "You heard your mother," my father snapped. "We're done. Both of you out of this house." I could barely breathe. The words didn't sound real. I felt like I was watching someone else's life happen from the outside. But we wouldn't even be here if... Enough. I'm 2 now. It's Abletown. My mother slammed her hand against the kitchen counter. A plate rattled. My son jumped. "You think you can waltz back into our lives after 7 years and expect us to clean up your mess? You think you can live here for free? Eat our food? Use our electricity? You think we owe you anything?" Her words came out like venom. Sharp, purposeful, designed to hurt. I swallowed hard. "Mom, I came because I had nowhere else to go. I told you what happened. I told you everything." "You're lying," my father muttered. "Same as always. Same as always." He said it like I was some repeat offender. Like I had spent my whole adult life asking them for help when in reality, this was the first time I'd stepped foot in their house in years. My mother stepped closer, her voice dropping to a cold whisper. "You left. You made your choices. And now you show up with a kid and no money? And you expect us to feel bad? To fix your life for you?" "I didn't come for money," I said softly. "I came for safety." Ethan tugged on my sleeve, looking up at me with wide, confused blue eyes. "Mommy, are we in trouble?" My stomach twisted. "No, baby," I whispered, brushing his hair back. "We're okay." But we weren't. I knew we weren't. My mother's voice rose again, shrill and shaking. "You two are leeches, takers. Nothing but parasites. 18. End quote. My father pointed toward the front door. "There's the exit. Use it." And just like that, I realized I had no family. Not in this house. Not anymore. I picked up Ethan, his small arms wrapping around my neck as he buried his face into my shoulder, trying not to cry. "Let's go," I whispered. As I walked past my parents, the 2 people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, neither of them reached out. Neither blinked. Neither looked sorry. My mother turned away completely. My father walked to the fridge, as if throwing his daughter and grandson out was nothing more than an annoying errand he needed to check off before dinner. The screen door creaked behind me. The late evening air hit my face, cool and painful, like a slap. I stepped onto the front porch, shaking, breath uneven, heart pounding so hard it hurt. I buckled Ethan into the back seat of my car. My hands were trembling so violently I could barely click the latch. "Mommy," he whispered, voice small. "Did I do something wrong?" I closed my eyes. Tears slipped down both cheeks. "No, sweetie, you didn't do anything wrong." He nodded slowly, then added, "Did you do something wrong?" That question cut deeper than anything my parents said. I got into the driver's seat. I stared at my childhood home through the windshield, illuminated by the warm porch light, a place that used to mean safety, bedtime stories, Christmas mornings, pancakes on Sundays. Now it looked like a stranger's house. I put the car in drive, pulled out of the driveway, didn't look back. Because looking back would have destroyed me. As I drove down the road, headlights cutting through the darkness, one truth settled into my bones. What happened tonight was only the beginning. And if my parents thought I was a parasite now, they had no idea what storm was coming. My name is Lena Brooks, 34 years old, born and raised in the quiet suburban sprawl of Cedar Falls, Ohio, the kind of place where people mow their lawns on Saturdays, kids ride bikes until sunset, and everyone waves at everyone even if they secretly hate them. Growing up, my parents weren't cruel. They weren't warm either. They were performative. They loved looking like the perfect family, perfect lawn, Perfect church attendance. Perfect daughter. As long as I acted how they wanted, polite, quiet, straight-A student, cheerleader smiling and family photos, everything was fine. But the moment I had an opinion, or questioned something, or wanted something that didn't fit their mold, I became the family shame. At least, that's how they made me feel. I left home at 27 with nothing but a suitcase and a stubborn belief that I could make a better life for myself. I thought I'd finally found it too with Noah. Noah, my ex-husband. The man I thought was my way out. My fresh start. We met in Louisville, Kentucky. I was working at a coffee shop. He walked in wearing a wrinkled button-up, charming smile, big career dreams. He told me I was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. Nobody had ever said that to me. We fell fast enough to ignore the red flags, his temper, his controlling nature, the way he'd disappear for hours, then show up with excuses, the way he never wanted me talking to coworkers or friends. But I convinced myself it was love, because for the first time in my life, someone chose me. When Ethan was born, everything changed. Noah got meaner, colder, more unpredictable, and eventually, dangerous. I stayed longer than I should have. People always ask, why didn't you leave sooner? The truth is, abuse doesn't start as abuse. It starts as love, then slowly becomes fear. Eventually, the day came when fear outweighed love. Noah smashed a lamp across the living room wall while Ethan was watching cartoons. He didn't hit me, but the lamp landed close enough that I felt the heat of shattered glass against my cheek. That night, I packed a bag, grabbed Ethan, and left. I didn't go to the police, didn't go to a shelter, didn't call a friend. I drove home. To my parents. I thought stupidly that they'd help, that they'd see I was hurt, scared, desperate, that they'd care. Instead, they interrogated me, judged me, blamed me. Why did you marry someone like him? Why didn't you tell us sooner? Why didn't you work harder to make the marriage last? And the worst question, one I'm still not sure I've forgiven. Are you sure you didn't provoke him? We lasted 3 weeks in their house before tonight's explosion threw us out for good. As for the other characters in my life, bright, sensitive, observant, he picks up on everything. Too much sometimes. He loves dinosaurs, superhero capes, and peanut butter sandwiches with way too much jelly. He is the reason I breathe. The reason I keep moving. The reason I didn't stay with Noah any longer. We were inseparable in high school until I left town at 27. We reconnected on Facebook about a year ago. She's a nurse now, divorced, raising 2 girls, and somehow still has the softest heart I've ever known. She doesn't know the full story yet, but she will. Ambitious, manipulative, charismatic in public, cruel in private. A man who believes he owns whatever he touches. He hasn't contacted me yet, but he will. A place full of picket fences and secrets, where everyone talks but nobody really listens. Where parents care more about reputation than truth. Where a woman like me doesn't get much sympathy. But in this town, karma has a way of circling back. And my story, the one that began with my parents calling me and my son parasites, is about to twist in ways none of them could imagine. Because pain changes people, abandonment reshapes them, and eventually, enough is enough. I didn't sleep the night my parents threw us out. I parked behind a closed grocery store, cracked the windows, pushed Ethan's car seat back, and watched him drift off with his blanket tucked under his chin. The parking lot lights flickered every few minutes, buzzing and humming like the world was short-circuiting around me. I kept the engine off, afraid to waste gas, wrapping my coat around myself even though cold air seeped straight into my bones. I sat there, staring at my hands in the dim glow of the dashboard, feeling like I'd failed every version of myself. The little girl who dreamed of being safe, the woman who dreamed of being loved, the mother who promised she'd protect her child. But morning always comes, even when you don't want it to. The sun crawled over the horizon, lighting up the fogged-up windshield. Ethan stretched, rubbed his eyes, and whispered, "Mommy, are we going home now?" My throat tightened. "We're figuring things out today, buddy." He nodded, trusting me in a way I didn't feel I deserved. I drove straight to Melanie's house. I didn't call first. I didn't have the emotional strength to hear someone judge me or tell me this was somehow my fault. When she opened the door, wearing pajama bottoms and a messy bun, she froze for maybe 3 seconds before her whole face softened. "Lena? Oh my God. Come here." She wrapped me in the kind of hug that cracks something inside you, the kind where you don't realize how tightly you're holding yourself together until someone safe touches you. She pulled back, eyes scanning my face, then looked at Ethan. "You two look like you've been through hell." I tried to laugh, but it came out crooked. "That's pretty accurate." She didn't push, she just said, "Get inside." Her house smelled like coffee and cinnamon rolls, the kind of cozy warmth I'd been craving for months. Her daughters, Lily and Aubrey, were still asleep in their rooms. She poured me coffee and set a banana in front of Ethan, who ate it like he hadn't tasted food in weeks. "So," she said gently, sitting across from me, "what happened?" I told her everything. Not just what happened last night. Everything. Noah's temper. The lamp. My parents. The things they said. The fact that I had nowhere else to go. By the end, I felt empty, like I'd poured out every ounce of pain and didn't have anything left. Melanie reached across the table and put her hand on mine. "You're staying here," she said. No hesitation. "Mel, I can't." "You can. You will. I have a pull-out couch. The girls love Ethan. And, look at me." She waited until I met her eyes. "You're not doing this alone." I let out a shaky breath, nodding, trying not to cry for the 1,000th time. But that was just the beginning. Word gets around fast in Cedar Falls. Too fast. By the second day, I could feel it. The neighbors staring a second too long. The woman at the gas station whispering to another customer while looking straight at me. A text from an old high school classmate that read, "Heard you're back in town? Hope you're okay?" That double question mark kind of pity. I ignored all of it. I had bigger things to worry about, like finding a job, like finding childcare, like figuring out how to get legal protection from Noah if he showed up. I applied everywhere: diners, grocery stores, gas stations, a cleaning company. Some places smiled politely but clearly weren't hiring. Others looked at me like I was suspicious just for existing. The economy wasn't kind, but Cedar Falls was even worse. One afternoon, I went to the strip mall to fill out applications in person. I took Ethan with me since Melanie was working a double shift. While I was signing a form at the counter of a small clothing store, the manager looked up at me, narrowed her eyes, and said, "Do I know you?" I forced a polite smile. "I grew up here." "I'm Lena Brooks." Her eyebrows flew up. "Oh, you're those Brooks." My stomach dipped. "What does that mean?" "I just heard things." She shrugged. "That your parents said you ran off with a guy, got into trouble, and now you're back asking for handouts." Ever died. I felt heat rise in my face, embarrassment, anger, disbelief. "That's not what happened." She gave a tight-lipped smile. "Well, that's the story going around." I walked out without finishing the application. When we got outside, Ethan tugged my sleeve. "Mommy? Why was that lady mean?" I crouched down next to him. "Some people believe lies before they bother asking for the truth." He nodded once, like he understood more than a 7-year-old should. 2 days later, Melanie came home from work looking uneasy. "Hey," she said, dropping her keys on the counter. "We need to talk." I froze. "About what?" She hesitated. "Your mom called me." My stomach turned into knots. What did she want? "She said she was worried about you." Melanie did air quotes with a grimace. "And she said, you might be exaggerating things about your marriage." I felt my hands go cold. "She said that?" "Yeah. And she asked if you're stable right now." "It's still dvartnant." I sat down on the edge of the couch, shaking my head in disbelief. Of course. Of course my parents weren't done. It wasn't enough to throw me out now, they wanted to rewrite the narrative. Make themselves look innocent. Make me look unstable. "So what did you tell her?" I asked quietly. Melanie's voice softened. "I told her you're stronger than you think, and that you're safe with me." A wave of gratitude washed over me, but underneath it, a quiet, creeping fear. If my parents were telling people I was unstable, If they were painting me as dramatic, irresponsible, a liar, then protecting Ethan might become harder. People trust a married couple in their 60s more than a single mom who just fled a bad marriage, and that terrified me. 3 days after that call, I was doing laundry while Melanie was at work, humming softly to myself, trying to keep my mind from spiraling. Ethan was in the living room watching cartoons. The doorbell rang. I wiped my hands on my jeans and glanced out the side window. A police cruiser sat in the driveway. My stomach plummeted. I opened the door slowly. "Afternoon, ma'am," the officer said. "You Lena Brooks?" "Yes." He handed me a folded piece of paper. "A wellness check was requested for your son." My pulse spiked. What? By who?" He shrugged. "Caller didn't leave a name, but I knew. I knew exactly who it was." My voice trembled. "There's nothing wrong. My son is fine. I am great. It's Didn's devil. We still need to see him." Ethan peeked around the corner, eyes wide. The officer walked into the living room, asked Ethan a few questions. "Are you safe?" "Yes." "Does your mom take good care of you?" "Yes." "Do you feel scared at home?" "No." Ethan looked up at me after each answer, confused and worried, like he was afraid he was doing something wrong. The officer finally nodded. "Everything looks good. Sorry for the inconvenience." He left. I locked the door behind him and slid down to the floor, hands shaking uncontrollably. Ethan came over and sat in my lap. "Mommy, did I do bad?" "No, baby," I whispered into his hair. "You did perfect." But inside me, a new kind of fear rooted itself. Someone, my parents, or maybe Noah, was trying to paint me as unfit. This wasn't just gossip anymore. This was strategy. This was a campaign. This was the beginning of a war I never asked for. 2 nights later, after Melanie went to bed, I sat on the couch scrolling through my email. I saw a message from an address I hadn't blocked yet. Noah Brooks. Subject line: "We need to talk." My heart stopped. I opened it. "Lena, I know you left. I know you're scared. But you need to come back home with my son. This isn't a discussion. Call me my son, not our son." That word choice wasn't an accident. I deleted the email so fast my finger slipped. My breathing turned shallow. My chest tightened. He found out I was gone. He knew I took Ethan. He knew enough to email me, which meant he'd know more soon. I stood up and walked to the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face. I stared at my reflection, the hollow eyes, the exhaustion, the quiet desperation, and for the first time since leaving Noah, I truly felt the weight of being hunted. Not physically. Not yet. But emotionally, socially, legally. I crawled into bed next to Ethan and held him tighter than usual. Every second, every breath, every thought circled back to the same terrifying truth. Someone was trying to take my son from me. And the worst part? I didn't know who would strike first. My parents, or my ex-husband. But I knew one thing for certain. This town had chosen its villains, and I wasn't one of them. Not anymore. It happened on a Wednesday. The kind of Wednesday where the sky is so gray it feels like it's pressing on your shoulders. Melanie was working another double shift, and Ethan had been unusually quiet all morning, drawing superheroes with shaky little hands. I was cleaning up the breakfast dishes when someone banged on the front door. Not knocked. Banged. Hard. Ethan jumped, his crayon snapping in half. My heart dropped. I walked to the door slowly, like my body already knew something bad was waiting for me on the other side. I opened it, and the world tilted. Standing on the porch were 2 police officers, hands resting near their belts, and beside them, my parents. My mother was clutching her purse like she was the victim. My father looked stiff, determined, like he had rehearsed this moment. "Lena Brooks?" one of the officers said. My voice came out thin. "Yes, we're here on a court-ordered temporary custody action." I blinked. I didn't understand the words at first. It was like they were speaking underwater. "Custody? Of who?" I whispered. The officer glanced down at his paperwork. "Your son, Ethan Brooks." My knees almost buckled. "What? No, that has to be a mistake." My mother stepped forward, voice trembling with false concern. Lena, sweetie, this is for the best. You're overwhelmed. You're unstable. You're making unsafe decisions. Her words hit like bullets. I stared at her. You called a wellness check on him. You told people I was unstable. You're trying to take my child? We're protecting him, my father snapped. From what? I cried. From Emmy? From his mother? Ethan came to the doorway then, rubbing his eyes. Mom? What's happening? My mother gasped dramatically, putting a hand to her chest. Oh, sweet boy. Come to Grandma. It's okay now. She reached toward him, and Ethan, my brave, terrified 7-year-old, grabbed my leg and hid behind me. No, he whispered. I stay with Mommy. The officers exchanged a look. The taller one stepped forward. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to hand the boy over. My breath caught in my throat. You can't just take him. This is a temporary order pending evaluation, he said. Your parents filed an emergency motion. Claims of instability, unsafe environment, lack of housing. My heart cracked open. I didn't even know they could do that. I didn't even know they would. I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. No, please. Please don't do this. Please. Ma'am, the officer said gently. If you resist, we'll have to escalate. The world blurred. My knees hit the floor. I held Ethan, wrapped both arms around him like my life depended on it. Mommy, he whispered, voice shaking. Don't let them take me. I was sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe. My mother stood over us, lips pressed thin, eyes cold and triumphant. Stop being dramatic, Lena. The taller officer crouched beside me. Ma'am, please, let go. I curled around my son, shaking my head. I can't. He's all I have. My father's voice cut in, sharp and disgusted. And you've proven you're not capable of taking care of him. Those words carved themselves into me. The officer gently pried my arms loose. Ethan screamed. Not cried, screamed. No. Mommy, no. I reached for him, but another officer held me back. My mother scooped him up awkwardly, like he was some package she had signed for. He kicked, clawed, sobbing so hard he hiccuped. Please, Mommy. My heart shattered in real time. Piece by piece. Light by light. My mother forced a smile. It's okay, honey. Grandma's got you now. They walked him down the porch. He reached toward me, fingers stretched as far as they could go. And I swear, I felt the moment he slipped from my hands, like someone yanked out a piece of my soul. The cruiser door shut, the engine started, and the car drove away with my son still screaming my name. I collapsed on the porch, sobbing, body shaking so violently I couldn't breathe. My parents watched me. My father said nothing. My mother whispered, "You'll thank us one day." I looked up at her through tears, through heartbreak, through pure, animalistic pain. "No," I said, "I won't." Then she turned, got into her car, and they left me there on the cold wooden porch like a piece of trash they'd finally thrown away. I don't know how long I sat there. Time didn't feel real. The world didn't feel real. It was Melanie who found me. She pulled into the driveway after her shift, saw me sitting on the porch steps, and ran toward me. "Lena, oh my God, Lena, what happened?" I couldn't even say it. The words wouldn't come. She followed my gaze. The empty driveway, the silence, the police tire marks. Her face paled. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no, no." I finally choked out. "They took him." She dropped to her knees beside me, wrapping her arms around me. Who took him?" "My parents," I whispered. They filed something. They said I'm unstable. And the police, they took him." Melanie held me as I sobbed into her shoulder. After a long moment, she took a deep, steadying breath. "Okay, listen to me. We're not giving up. We're not letting them win. There are laws. There are lawyers. There are social workers. This isn't over." Her voice was fierce, sharp, determined. I stared at her, barely able to focus. "I don't have money for lawyers." "I do." I shook my head weakly. "Mel, I can't let you." "I didn't ask." Her grip on my shoulders tightened. "You're getting your son back. It was the first sliver of hope I'd felt in weeks. Melanie spent the next hour making calls. Family lawyers, advocates, anyone who would listen. Finally, she found one, a woman named Attorney Julia Myers, known for taking pro bono cases involving wrongful custody claims. We met her the next morning. Julia was sharp, mid-40s, curly hair pulled up, glasses low on her nose. The kind of woman who didn't get intimidated easily. After hearing my story, she leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "Well," she said, "your parents overplayed their hand." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "They filed an emergency order based on accusations, without evidence. Judges hate that. If we can prove you're stable and show their motivation, we can reverse this." "My motivation?" I echoed. Julia gave me a slow, assessing look. "Your parents have a reputation in this town. They care a lot about appearances, more than most." Melanie scoffed. "That's putting it lightly," Julia added. "And I've seen cases like this. Older parents trying to correct their adult child by taking control of the grandchild." My skin crawled. "So what do I do?" I whispered. Julia leaned forward. "You fight back. You get documentation. Proof. Character statements. Evidence of Noah's behavior. Anything that shows you're the protective parent." My heart skipped a beat at the sound of his name. "Noah," I whispered. "I haven't told him where we are." "Good," Julia said. "Don't." "I can't." But deep down, I had the awful feeling he already knew. The twist didn't come from the courts, or Noah, or even my parents. It came from something far worse. 3 days after losing Ethan, I got a call from Attorney Julia. Her tone was off. "Lena, I need you to come to the office." "Did something happen?" "Yes," she said slowly, "and you need to sit down for this." Melanie drove me. I stared out the window the whole ride, numb, terrified, exhausted. When we walked into Julia's office, she closed the door behind us, exhaled sharply, and rubbed her temples. "Lena, your parents aren't the only ones trying to get custody." My blood turned to ice. "No," I whispered. No, tell me you're not saying what I think you're saying." Julia slid a document across the table. A formal petition, filed the day after my parents submitted theirs. My hands shook as I picked it up. "Petition for emergency custody. Claim. Abduction by mother. Claim. Child endangerment. Claim. Unfit parent." My breath hitched. He's saying I abducted my own son?" Julia nodded grimly. "He's painting you as unstable, dangerous, claiming you fled the state, claiming you're hiding from him, claiming you're mentally unwell." Melanie muttered under her breath. "That son of a—" I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. "And that's not the worst part," Julia added. I forced myself to meet her eyes. "There's worse?" She nodded. "Your parents submitted a signed affidavit supporting Noah's claims." I froze. "What?" Julia slid the second document across the table. A notarized statement, signed by both my mother and father, stating that I was unstable. I had emotional outbursts. I was reckless with Ethan's safety. I refused to provide adequate housing. I alienated Ethan from family support. I was hostile and uncooperative. I felt physically sick. "They're working with Noah?" I whispered. Julia nodded. "From the outside it looks like a unified front. 3 adults claiming you're unstable, versus you, alone." Melanie slammed her hand on the table. "This is insane." Julia spoke carefully. "Lena, your parents didn't just throw you out. They didn't just judge you. They didn't just overreact." She leaned forward, voice dropping. "They're trying to erase you." I sat there in silence, the truth settling in like poison. My parents didn't want to protect Ethan. They wanted to punish me. And Noah wanted control. Together, they were trying to take my son forever. Melanie reached for my hand. "Lena, look at me," she whispered. "This isn't the end. This is where you start fighting." But I felt the shift. Something inside me hardened. Something quiet, fierce, unbreakable. My parents thought I was weak. Noah thought I was scared. They had no idea who they'd just woken up. And if they wanted a war, they were about to get one. The hearing room felt colder that morning. Maybe it was the nerves. Maybe it was the weight of the past 3 years pressing onto my chest. I sat beside my attorney, hands clasped together so tightly my knuckles turned pale. Eli sat next to me, his little hand resting on my thigh, calm in that quiet way he always was around me. Across the room, my parents took their seats. My father wore a suit he probably thought made him look important. My mother kept her eyes down, hiding behind carefully fixed makeup, but her lips were tight, still angry, still righteous in her own mind. They weren't here to apologize. They were here because Sam, after confessing everything to the police and turning himself in, had also turned in the financial abuse trail, and that trail led straight to my parents. Turns out Sam wasn't the only one siphoning money behind my back. He had worked with my father. And now, the state wanted answers. My father glared at me across the room like I somehow dragged him here, like I caused this. My attorney leaned in. Remember, stay calm. The facts speak for themselves now. Facts. Something I had learned could burn brighter than fire when finally exposed to light. When the judge entered, the whole room straightened. Papers shuffled. My heart pounded. The state investigator began. They laid out the timeline of missing savings, the forged documents, the false signatures, the trail leading back to both Sam and my father. You could hear a pin drop. My father shook his head like it was all nonsense, muttering under his breath. My mother looked between him and me, her breaths quickening. Then came my turn. The prosecutor asked, "Miss Jensen, when did you first learn your parents had accessed your account without permission?" I swallowed. My voice trembled, but I didn't break. 3 weeks ago, when Sam finally confessed, I didn't want to believe him. I thought it was just his manipulation again, but the records proved it. "And why did you never question the missing funds before?" I looked at the judge, then briefly at my parents. Because I trusted the wrong people. I believed Sam when he told me I was overthinking. I believed my parents would never cross that line. A breath. I believed lies because I was raised to believe that doubting them made me ungrateful. My mother flinched. My father scoffed. The judge took notes. Then my attorney presented the character letters from neighbors, my boss, Eli's teachers. They all painted a picture of stability, growth, responsibility. My responsibility. The judge's eyes softened when she looked at Eli. "And this is your son?" I nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. My whole world." Eli smiled, small and shy. The judge looked back at my parents. "And these are the individuals who called you and your son. What was the word?" She checked the paperwork. "Parasites." "It is Nez." The room tensed. My mother's face turned white. My father opened his mouth, but the judge lifted a hand. "No need. The statement is documented." And with that, the power dynamic shifted entirely. I didn't even have to raise my voice. Truth had teeth, and it finally bit back. The hearing ended not with a bang, but with a quiet, devastating blow, an official investigation into my father's financial misconduct, a warning to my mother for verbal harassment during a custodial conflict, and a protective order granting them zero access to Eli without a therapist-approved plan. They had wanted control. Instead, they got consequences. And I walked out of that courthouse holding Eli's hand, feeling for the first time in years like the ground under my feet belonged to me again. Karma doesn't always show up as some dramatic explosion. Sometimes it's a slow, unraveling thread by thread until the truth sits naked in the sun with nowhere to hide. For my parents, karma came quietly. My father's so-called community reputation, gone within weeks. The investigation became public record. He stepped down from his board position. People whispered in the grocery store aisles loud enough for him to hear. The man who once yelled that I was a parasite, now avoided like a disease. My mother tried to maintain her social mask, but cracks spread fast. Her friends asked too many questions. Everyone wanted to know why she had spoken to her own daughter like that, why she never defended me, why she stayed silent while I drowned. Truth became her shadow. She couldn't outrun it. Sam faced his karma too. He served time, not much, but enough. His record was permanently stained. And I heard through a friend that after his release, he tried rebuilding his life in another state, but manipulation only works when people trust you. And trust wasn't something he could buy again. As for me, I didn't celebrate their downfall. I didn't cheer. But I also didn't lose sleep, because their consequences weren't mine to carry anymore. One evening, months later, I saw my parents in the grocery store parking lot. They looked smaller, quieter. My mother spotted me first. She opened her mouth, maybe to say something, maybe to apologize, but the words stuck. I nodded politely. Nothing more. I didn't owe them closure. Walking away from them wasn't revenge. It was peace. And peace, I've learned, is the purest form of karma there is. Life didn't magically become perfect after the court hearing. Healing wasn't a straight line. It never is. But slowly, gently, things began to rebuild. Eli and I moved into a new apartment near the lake. It wasn't big or fancy, but it was ours. Every corner felt like fresh air. Every quiet morning felt like freedom. I went back to school online, taking evening classes in accounting so I could handle my own finances with confidence. I upgraded at work, then got promoted, not because someone pulled strings for me, not because I begged for a chance, but because I earned it. And somewhere in that winding path, I learned something I never expected. Strength doesn't come from being unbreakable. It comes from breaking and choosing to rebuild anyway. One night, Eli crawled into my lap while I was reading on the couch. He looked up at me with his calm, old-soul eyes and said, "Mom, are we okay now?" I wrapped my arms around him. "Yeah, baby. We're more than okay." Because we were. For the first time since he was born, we lived without fear hanging in the air, without someone calling us burdens, without someone reminding me of everything I supposedly lacked. We lived with love, with laughter, with quiet grocery trips, and Saturday pancake mornings. We lived with bedtime stories and messy craft projects. We lived with hope not borrowed, not begged for, but built with our own hands. Months passed. Seasons changed. I healed in layers. One soft truth at a time. One evening in early fall, I received a letter. Not a text, not an email. A handwritten letter from my mother. My heart tightened, but I opened it. Inside, her handwriting shook across the paper. It said, "I don't expect forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. But I need you to know something. Your father and I were wrong, and I hope someday you find more peace than we ever did. No excuses. No deflection. Just truth." And for the first time in a long while, I felt something warm spread through my chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but release. I folded the letter and tucked it into a drawer. Not to cherish it, but to remind myself that even people who hurt you can eventually see the damage they caused, and sometimes that's the only closure you ever get. The final piece of my healing came unexpectedly. I took Eli to the lake one bright afternoon. We walked along the pier, the breeze ruffling his hair. He leaned over the edge, watching boats drift by, then looked up at me. "Mom? Yeah? Thank you for choosing me." My breath hitched. I knelt down, holding his face gently in my hands. "I will always choose you, Eli. Always." And that's when it hit me why the pain happened, why the betrayal hurt so deeply, why the journey was so long. Because I had to lose the people who told me I was a parasite, to become the woman who knew she was never one. I wasn't a burden. I wasn't a mistake. I wasn't unworthy. I was a mother who rose from ashes. I was a woman who rebuilt her life. I was a heartbeat that refused to stop. I chose myself. I chose my son. And life finally chose us back. If someone ever makes you feel like you're a burden, walk away before you start believing them. Family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by love, respect, and the courage to protect your peace. You are not a parasite. You are not a weight on someone else's shoulders. You deserve to be loved without conditions, without cruelty, without apology. And if no one has ever told you this before, you are worthy. You are enough. And you deserve a life where your light isn't dimmed by anyone.